What's up, everybody? Jackson Fuller here with Owen Hassell, and round two of the playoffs. We only have four local teams still alive with a shot at a state championship. Round one last week, I think we had the favorites pretty much take it, do what they needed to do in the first round. Whiteville and Wallace Rose Hill, we can get into that a little bit later on. That was maybe the one surprise we had in local teams, but hey, Whiteville was the higher seed than Wallace Rose Hill was. And, you look at the recent history of Wallace Rose Hill and Whiteville football, that's a game where Wallace Rose Hill is the team normally making deep runs, but how about Whiteville? I think we can jump right in there. Ty Moss and Javonte Davis, they're starting to kind of pick up some steam here at the end of the year, and that's a very impressive win for the Wolfpack.
And what we said, too, is that 2A East could be pretty wide open. I mean, Clinton might have that edge just because, it is the one seed and a conference champion. But now Whiteville, I believe, goes to Southwest Edgecombe, and they win that.
Who knows?
Northeastern's a 3 seed. They might have to go to Elizabeth City, but you got to give Whiteville a pretty good chance that could get to a regional final. I'm probably looking a little bit far ahead, of course. No one wants to do that in the playoffs because it's one win and you keep going and elimination, that kind of thing. But I see things even more up for grabs in the 2A East than I even thought last week.
Right.
Not just because of Wallace Rose Hill losing, but by how it was dominant.
Yeah. And you look, it's one game at a time for Whiteville, but I will say, coming into the year, we thought the question mark for them was they've got Ty Moss, they've got Javonte Davis. Could they stop teams? Their two losses during the regular season to Red Springs and West Brunswick, it wasn't because of the defense. That offense just struggled, and they don't have the best offensive line. But when the offensive line is serviceable during a game, you've got two of the more elite playmakers across the state. So the Wolfpack have to feel very confident. That's a win for, I know Coach Price had to have enjoyed that win against his old stomping grounds in Wallace Rose Hill. Big win. I don't know too much about Southwest Edgecombe, but they've been very good all year. They've been in the top 10 for the 2A polls throughout the season. So that's going to be a tough test on the road. But hey, I mean, Wallace Rose Hill at any location is a tough test, and Whiteville already proved that they can beat the Bulldogs. Let's see what they can do this week in the second round. The game that I think everybody is going to kind of has their eyes on this week, though, is New Hanover hosting West Brunswick for the second time this season. New Hanover beat the Trojans 28-7 when they played in the regular season for the de facto, conference championship game. Owen, this is two teams familiar with each other. I don't think either coach wanted this game to be in the second round, but it is. They wouldn't mind playing in a regional final or a third round game. But here we go, second round. The Wildcats, is there any concern, beating a team by as handedly as they did last time, facing West Brunswick in a rematch? As a lot of times these rematches go the opposite way when you get to the playoffs.
You get to a situation where, again, these are kids, and I think we've noted this before, that in their mind they are thinking to a certain extent, we won this game handily a few weeks ago. What could totally be different this time around? Well, I've seen it, you've seen it. Things can be different. I've seen where teams have dominated another team in the regular season, then they play each other in the playoffs just because of the conference situation or what have you, and lost. Yeah. And because the other team made adjustments and said, okay, now we can really see what we did on film and work more on this, work more on that. Before you know it, maybe it's about middle of the third quarter and that game's tight, and then it starts throwing a little doubt in your head, and then it becomes mental. I've seen that many times, like you've seen it too with some of these games, these playoff rematches. But I do think for West Brunswick, what it's going to need, and everyone always says, well, the turnover battle. You have to win a turnover battle. That's any game. But I think even more crucial for West Brunswick, if it can get an early turnover from New Hanover, maybe a pick six, something where they just recover fumbles short field and can score early. That would be huge because we know what West Brunswick's defense can do, but if it's going to have to be out there a long period of time like it had to in the first meeting, that's difficult for any defense to handle. But if you give the defense that early score like that off of a turnover, once again, momentum starts to build, and you're in that middle of the third quarter, and it's a tight game, and you're thinking, okay, this isn't the same game we played about a month ago.
I think field position, you kind of touched on it. Field position, turnovers, and just overall adjustments are going to be so key in this game. One thing that I've been so impressed with Coach Dimmick at New Hanover is no game is has a similar, offensive game plan. He changes every single game based off what the defense he's going up against, and just he adds new wrinkles into the playbook. I mean, this Friday, it was a backwards pass to the backup quarterback in the slot that ended up in a touchdown. Against West Brunswick, you had seen a little bit of Wildcat this year, but not nearly the amount that they showed against the Trojans. Against Hoggard, we have had so much success running up the middle this year. We're going to beat them to the sideline. What adjustment does Coach Dimmick have this time for West Brunswick? And on the flip side, how does Coach Hickman and the Trojans combat with the New Hanover offense that has some playmakers that West Brunswick just doesn't see on a weekly basis? Not saying that they're not up for the challenge of stopping guys like Mackay Stanley and Jaheim Marshall, but this is it's a unique one that you don't normally see. Fortunately for West Brunswick, they've already seen this challenge once this year. They know what they're about to go against. Let's just briefly talk about those two games that they played in the first round. New Hanover was all over Topsail. They got a little sloppy in the second quarter, but if that hadn't have happened, they could have scored about 60 points. I think their offense was, that in groove in quarters 1, 3, and 4. And West Brunswick, that was a sloppy game, 10 combined turnovers. I think, in the second half, the defense, Hickman, I talk about adjustments. Coach Hickman made an adjustment. He brought the safety a little further forward, knowing that how Union Pines was getting some yardage was they were doing these quick throws across the middle, and the quarterback, though, didn't have enough time to set his feet and throw it deep. So they got a little closer to the line of scrimmage, took away that middle pass, and Union Pines really didn't have any success until about the 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter. Two good wins, I think, for both of those sides. For West Brunswick, that was their first playoff game in a while, an experience that almost all of the guys on this team hadn't had, and hey, they got one win down. Now they're going to try and get a second win. And I think all year they wanted to contend in the Mid-Eastern. They wanted to win the conference title. That didn't happen. This is all gravy for the West Brunswick program to be in the state playoffs and have an opportunity to go to the third round.
I think what was really interesting, too, is maybe you saw Coach Hickman's Twitter feed. Of course, he's really active on Twitter, and it's great for us to see that and the enthusiasm the program has and that kind of thing. But after that game, how excited those players were, how excited Coach Hickman was. It looked like they were picking them up in the air and moving them around or something. It was unreal, and he does the whole Roy Williams thing, circling how many teams are left after this round, and everyone's just, again, hyped and pumped up. And that didn't look like a locker room that went, hey, we're excited. Oh, no, we have New Hanover next round.
No, they're ready.
It was not that at all. If anything else, it looked about as pumped as ever to say, you can win this game.
Oh, yeah.
And West Brunswick can win this game.
Absolutely. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. The score was 28-7. There were 2 muffed punts where New Hanover got the ball at the West Brunswick 10-yard line. You take those away, it's 14-7. Of course, I think the Wildcats kind of called off the Dogs a little bit in the second half with a 3-score lead. Shoot, they might have been winning. I think they were winning by 4 scores at halftime, maybe. At some point, I think they were up 28-0. But regardless, they got a little conservative. Mackay Stanley didn't get as many touches. Jaheim the same. So maybe the score is 21-7 more right for that game. I don't know, but there was an opportunity there for West Brunswick. If they had played clean football, it would have been a closer game. And that's what Coach Hickman has been stressing to his team, I know, is play a cleaner game. The 2 muff punts, it'll be interesting to see if they even try to catch these punts from Owen Daffer, which, you don't turn the ball over, but Daffer's such a good punter. Those 40-yard punts could turn into 50 and 60 if you let them bounce and roll and roll and roll.
Here's the other part of it, too, is it's easy for a coach to tell his guys constantly, you belong here, you can do this, you can do this. But until you see things, and we're in a visual society, I always say a lot of times, like with newspapers, well, I got to see it. I got to see the photo. I've got to see something before I read it almost, which is not always good for us when people want to read stories, but that's another point. Is now, though, they can see it. They can see the fruits of the labor. They can see that you were right there for a conference championship. They can see, well, we're in the second round of the playoffs now. They can see just those couple mistakes probably made the biggest difference in that loss to New Hanover. They can see all of that and say, hey, this can happen now. It's not just we want it to happen and let's see how it goes. It's there. And the confidence You can just see exuding from these guys. And who wouldn't want to play for Brett Hickman? Good gosh.
No.
I mean, his enthusiasm
Right.
spills over with these guys.
You can tell the Trojans, they bought in. He said it took a little while. He was a little hard on him last year for he had a bunch
that's
of
expected. First year, you got to change. I hate saying changing culture because it's used so friggin' often, but there's truth to that. There was going to be those growing pains last year, but we've said it on here a couple of times that you could see glimmers of there's some changing going on. There is some good works going on, and let's see how much it pays off in 2019. Well, it's paying off.
Right. Last thing I want to say about this game, I think, and I should have said it earlier, but I really think the biggest key for this game, neither team is going to be able to run the ball 10 times and score on the opposing team's defense. The quarterbacks have to make a couple plays, and Chase Nixon made those plays last time against West Brunswick. He made a couple deep throws to Jaheim. He got the ball out to his receivers, Aiden Brady and Landon Ferris. Jay Fletcher made a couple plays but didn't make enough consistently, and the New Hanover pass rush really didn't give him any time to make those plays. The quarterbacks have, because I just don't see either team lining up and running the ball 10 times and scoring multiple touchdowns that way.
But I also think time management is important. If you can, sometimes your best defense, your offense is your best defense, although West Brunswick, that shouldn't be the case. But in this, if you once again get that early turnover and a score, and then you can get back on offense later and just grind things and really start to work that clock, that's another thing that starts to become mental. Well, we know we can score, but when are we going to get the ball back?
Right.
And can West Brunswick do some of those things? I think those might be the couple of wrinkles, and I'm certainly not a coach, but a couple of wrinkles that West Brunswick could put into this rematch that could give it the edge.
Yeah. Finally, Hoggard at home, they'll open their playoff run in the second round. The 4-seeded Vikings will take on the 12-seeded Apex Friendship, who upset Green Hope last week 9-6. First playoff victory in Apex Friendship history. Just did a little bit of research this morning. The Vikings and Apex Friendship, kind of similar teams, not particularly great throwing the football. They both like to run the ball with a couple different backs, play good defense, and look, Hoggard, it hasn't been the season that anybody associated with the Hoggard football program expected or wanted, but you get a win this week, and you're playing in the third round for, I think, either the third or fourth consecutive season. That's impressive, regardless of the little fortuitous to get a first round bye in the 4AA playoffs. But hey, you take your draw and you play on, and this is an opportunity for Hoggard to continue their tradition of making a deep run in the state playoffs.
And once again, it is also, if you have a young team, being in the playoffs matters, not just because you're not going to be favored early and you might lose first or second round, but it's those extra practices. It's that extra time with these young guys to work on reps, game time, all of these things that can certainly carry over to next year. That extra practice time you can't get if your season ends in the regular season.
Right.
You can't get that. And now Hoggard's getting that. I said it before, don't hate the player, hate the game, because they beat the 2 4A teams they needed to get the bye. They didn't set that up. It was set up. They did those. They won those games, so they get the bye in the second round with a chance to make the third round of the postseason, which, with the talent it had last year, how far did it get last year? Third round.
Right, yeah. And I'm expecting some changes not changes, but I think Coach Underwood, you talk about coaches on Twitter, Coach Underwood said on Twitter he was looking forward to a week of practice where they didn't have to prepare for an opponent last week. Yeah. That's a whole week where you don't have to worry about game planning or scout team or anything like that. You can kind of install your get back to fundamentals, but also take a step back and say, what can we do to maybe get this offense better against any opposition? Doesn't matter who we play. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit different of an offense on Friday night from Hoggard. There's no background info there. I just think it makes sense coming off of a struggling at the end of the year against Topsail and New Hanover. You get a week where you get to kind of work on things and implement new concepts if you want. I would expect Hoggard has a game plan ready for Apex Friendship and for however long they're playing in the playoffs.
And you're playing a team that I don't think Hoggard's ever played before, because Apex Friendship isn't that old of a school. I don't think they've ever played before. Coaching staffs maybe know each other just through coaching clinics or whatever, but otherwise it's about as clean of a slate, brand new.
Right.
meeting than you'd ever have. So that gives you the opportunity, like you said, to put in some new wrinkles and see what happens.
The defense has to be better than what they were against New Hanover, and I think the Wildcats have one of the better offenses across the eastern part of the state. So there's not really too much shame in giving up 30 points to them, but you could tell the defense was surprised with how poorly it was playing against New Hanover and let it kind of snowball in that second quarter. Apex Friendship only scored 9 points against Green Hope, so there's an opportunity there for this defense to step up and guide this Hogger team into the second round. The defense was going to be the strength all season. I know Garrett Manning's hurt, the secondary's young, but they've still put up some great performances this year. They're going to need another one Friday night against Apex Friendship if Hogger wants to move on. As always, follow along on Twitter at Star News Varsity, Facebook.com/Star News Varsity, and StarNewsVarsity.com. Friday night, Saturday morning, we'll have all sorts of coverage from you from the second round of the playoffs. I will be over at Legion Stadium covering the rematch between West Brunswick and New Hanover. Noah Powers is going to be over on Shipyard covering Hoggard's home game against Apex Friendship, and you can follow him at TealNoah23 on Twitter for updates. As always, have a great week, everybody. I appreciate you guys watching and enjoy this Friday night football. And it's almost Thanksgiving time. And if you're playing football on the Friday after Thanksgiving, it's a great season. Let's see how many teams. We're guaranteed at least one. Let's see how many teams are playing football the Friday after Thanksgiving. Everyone have a great week.